clients that you've probably heard of. I actually won't talk a lot about the actual clients, just a lot of them are confidential, just as a heads up. But yeah, just to get a gauge of you guys, how many of you are students? Okay, so good portion of you. Any non-students? Sweet. How many of you guys came from out of state? And where did you guys all come from?
Indiana.
Indiana, where else? Kansas?
Michigan.
Michigan? Nice. How'd you guys hear about this?
AAG.
AAG stuff? Okay, cool. Just curious, it's good to get a feel for that. Okay, so the reason why I'm here today is because when I was in school, I didn't really know what to expect going into the field. I didn't really know a lot of people in the field, and I wasn't really doing my research, to be very honest. And if there's anything that I can impart upon you guys about my experience to hopefully take away some of that mystery, it's something that I'm really happy to do. So the first part of my presentation is going to be mainly about my journey from NIU to my internship at PowerShares to then now my job at Razorfish. And then the second part, I'm going to talk about just some tips that might help you guys through that process for you, you know, when you're in school, and then when you're looking for that job, and then when you're actually on the job. So first thing that I learned was that I didn't know shit in school. I wasn't really using my resources a lot, as I said before. Right now, I look at design blogs all the time, looking at clipsologies and things like that. But at the time, I really wasn't doing that, and I kind of stayed in a bubble on my own. I really connected to my peers and my professors, and that was about it. I did have a couple jobs, design jobs at school, which I think did help a lot. And just to give you an idea of how talented I was when I started, I'll show you a little bit of work, and I want you to appreciate how horrendous this is. So good. So yeah, that's kind of where I started, and this is some of the work that I created at some of my early design classes and some of those early design jobs at NIU, Division of Student Affairs and Housing and Dining for those of you who go to school here. Not to say that if you work there, you're going to create work this way, but anyway. It was alright, it was a good starting point. And so I didn't really know what to expect. One thing that I really wanted to focus on web design, that's where I wanted to get a job, but I was really terrified because we were learning how to do some coding in Dreamweaver, and I didn't know if I got a web design job, if I would have to code, if that's something that would be expected of me, and I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to perform, and so that was frightening for me. But I did work hard in school, and I ended up getting put up for an internship interview with Rule 29, which didn't get the job. But luckily, they did see potential in me, and they had me work with a financial company that they worked with. They sell ETFs, which is like a cross between stocks and mutual funds. If anybody is interested in that. It wasn't that exciting of work, but they hired me as an intern, which was really great. And at that point, I learned that I was really scared of what was ahead of me, but always forget that this slide comes up. This is what I showed at my interview. This is what I showed at my interview with Rule 29 and with PowerShares, and it kind of shows I was progressing, getting better. Everything got a lot cleaner, so that's good. But yeah, I learned that internships are really important. For me, it really provided a bridge between school and work that I may not have had otherwise. And it also, it taught me how to work on a team, how to actually work on practical stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise been working in. The stuff in school that you do, it a lot of times feels like, well, this is a big project that my professors made up and it's not realistic, but actually working with the team and being on that team was really helpful. And yeah, I think the work that I was doing with PowerShares, it was mainly updating their marketing materials. So it was updating new content. It wasn't really inventing a new design language, which was fine. And I was updating a lot of their charts and graphs in Illustrator, and to kind of give you a visual of what that looked like, this is the work that I was updating and creating. It's not super sexy again, but this is what I was doing, and one of the beautiful things about this, I learned that I was really good at setting type. And that was something that I learned in school that they didn't teach me. And actually it was pretty awesome that when I was working on this and they were giving me these materials to update, I saw like, this work isn't great. Like whoever was working on this before didn't do a great job. And actually the guy who worked on this stuff before me, he didn't have any kind of design background. So he was just, he had picked up Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator and just taught himself the technical ability but didn't have any conceptual understanding of what design was. And so I saw that like I could make this stuff better, and that means that I'm capable and they need me. And that was a beautiful thing because I was so scared of getting out into a job and not being able to compete, not being able to perform. And same here, that I actually could hold my own and that I could bring something to the table was a really, really great thing. And so at that point, I couldn't wait to graduate. But then, you know, stressful things happen sometimes. Life throws you a curveball, and I got into a car accident right before graduation. Some guy came out of nowhere, hit me on the right side. I braced, and I broke my arm, and I had to have a metal plate put in my arm, which kind of put me out of commission for a while. And funny thing happened. I was so focused and worried about that point in my life, and I got to the hospital, and at first I was just like, I'm glad I'm okay, you know, I didn't go into shock, and everything was fine, but then I'm sitting there getting x-rays, and the woman who was over in the next room, she heard me sobbing, and she was like, oh my gosh, are you in pain, what's wrong? And I just was like, no, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to graduate. And I went back into the hospital room, and the first person I called, not my boyfriend, not my parents, was Steve Quinn. Because I was so frightened that I wasn't going to be able to graduate. And I mean, it worked out, it was fine. And even when stressful things like that happened, he was able to give me an extension. And PowerShares was able to give me some time off, so I was able to recoup, and it worked out fine. So I went into senior show, and this is the work that I showed at the time. It's not amazing, but you know, it's getting better. And the thing that was it was frustrating because I went to senior show and I didn't have a full site developed. I was creating a Chicago tourist website, and all I had to show was the book and maybe like flat design for the site, but it wasn't actually developed. And consequently or not, I didn't have a lot of bites at senior show. I think it can be a common thing. And I did talk to somebody at Razorfish there, but that ended up falling through for one reason or another. It wasn't a good fit at the time. And whether it was laziness or out of fear, I wasn't really applying myself, and I wasn't really applying to any other jobs. So when PowerShares, my internship, offered me a full-time position, I just gladly took it. But I knew at that point, I felt very comfortable there, but there wasn't a lot, there weren't a lot of people there for me to learn from and to grow with. And it was pretty much me and a very small marketing team and my creative director. And the only way I was going to move up is if he left. And the only way that, there wasn't really any way that I could work on web work, which is what I really wanted to be doing. The developers that I was working with, they were in China, so it was very difficult to communicate with them. There wasn't a lot of, I wasn't getting the kind of experience that I really needed to be the web designer that I wanted to be. So I knew I really needed to start looking for something else. And I actually went to Seek that year, and the same guy who I talked to at my senior show from Razorfish was there, and he said that Razorfish was hiring. And so I was pushed to go talk to him, and I did, and he recognized me as the girl with the jacked up arm. And he told me that I should apply, and so I did, and luckily I had a friend working there at the time, and the work that I was doing at PowerShares helped. It was the same type of work that I would have been doing at Razorfish. That was the type of role that they were trying to fill. It was for an insurance client. So they knew I could handle the work, and I had that experience, which was great. And I think before, Razorfish probably didn't want to hire somebody like me who really didn't have any experience, or who had very little experience. So that was a really great thing. So I started at Razorfish, and I was there for a few weeks, and I started to feel like I had no typing. And they didn't give me any work to do in the beginning. I think I sat for like 3 or 4 weeks without anything to do, just reviewing a style guide. And if you guys aren't familiar with the style guide, it's a visual language for whatever your brand or client is. And it includes like typography standards, colors, photography, things of that nature. And so I was reviewing this thing without any context of the work. And on top of that, they're all using insurance language that I'm unfamiliar with. They're using a bunch of acronyms on the team because it makes it easier for them to communicate on a day-to-day, but like being thrown into that, it was like they were speaking a foreign language. And there were like something like 30 acronyms. So it was really frustrating, and after being there for 3 weeks and not really doing any work and being confused as hell, I was sure that they were gonna let me go. So I realized to actually get moving and get comfortable, I had to get my hands dirty. And so the first project that they gave me, I think was like, it was such a tiny thing. It was updating like one question, or it was changing checkboxes to radio buttons or something really, really little, but it helped to get me started into actually implementing that style guide, using it within the context of the work. And yeah, I was on this client for 2 years. What we did was update their auto quote process. So when you go online, whether it's to like, Becco or whatever it is, like trying to get an auto quote, filling all that stuff out. So it really was just production work. It was pixel pushing. It was form fields, and it wasn't the most exciting work, but it helped me to get really organized, really detailed, and just I threw myself in and just did the best that I could. And some of the best moments on this project were when we were in these 2-hour working sessions. And you have creative directors, you have designers, you have copywriters. It doesn't matter who you are, your opinion is super valid. And they're trying to figure out such a small design problem, it would seem from the outside, but everyone is trying to create the best possible product that they can. And it really, when in school they talk to you about, design is problem solving, this is what they're talking about. It's about creating the best possible experience for the user so that, when this insurance company's clients come in and they're trying to use their site, it's easy for them to get what they need, and it's not complicated, and so it's better for our clients, better for their consumers. And everyone cares about that. It doesn't matter if it's the most glamorous work. Everyone's just trying to do the best that they can. And it was during this time that I learned that mentorship is really important. I had a lot of support from my team, and they were great. They really helped me to get integrated into the work after a while once I started working on stuff. And one of the ladies that was working with me, her name was Christine, and I don't know if she was intentionally a mentor to me or not, but she was incredibly supportive. And anytime I had a question, anytime I came to her, she never treated me like I was asking a dumb question. She never treated me like I was wasting her time. And when we were in these 2-hour working sessions, she was an incredible role model. She, as a woman, stood, asserting her point of view in a very powerful way without being manipulative or without being a jerk. And she always brought people up. She always pushed the team forward. She never tore people down in order to make her point. And she was great. And those are the types of people that you want to surround yourself with. Those are the type of people you want to work with and follow as role models. And it was really great. It was during this time I also started to get feedback. About 9 months to a year after I started, I felt like I was getting more comfortable in the work that I was doing, but I wasn't sure how my team felt about me. And I had my boss come in, and he asked me to meet him for a meeting. And it was one of those moments where, like when your parents use your full name and you think that you're in trouble. And so I sat down with him, and he told me how great I was doing and all the positive feedback that he was getting from me, and that he was really invested in my career, and he wanted to see me move forward, and he wanted to get me on better work, better projects, and if I ever had any problems that I should talk to him. And that was a great thing to hear, because I didn't necessarily know that I was doing a great job. I was just trying to do my best. And I learned that I was doing a good job, and that I should keep doing those things. And it was an amazing, amazing thing. So, it was also at this time that we were doing peer reviews, and I people telling me that I was having such a positive attitude, which I thought was so weird because the type of project we were working on, I would make changes to like 50 different comms, or like it would be like a logo change, and you would have to change the registered symbol to a copyright symbol, and you had to change it on every single comm. And then somebody would come in 2 hours later and say, oh no, sorry, we need to change it back. And it drove me nuts, and I would be like, it was terrible. And so I knew I felt that way when someone would, make those requests of me, but it wasn't showing. And it wasn't showing in my work and the way I interacted with people. And I'm glad, and I knew that I needed to keep doing that. I needed to just keep saying, great, okay, I'll do that for you, no problem. And sometimes you just gotta grin and bear it. But it was all right. It was not too bad. But eventually I did start to get sick of what I was doing. And after 2 years of pixel pushing and moving form fields around and yes, problem solving, but it was really frustrating, I wanted to start looking for new projects, but there wasn't really anything available, which happens with agencies sometimes. It depends on what's available and who's coming on, and so there's so many people and so many shifting parts that you can't always work on the best work, and it's whoever is best for the job at that moment in time, and so that kind of happens sometimes. And I was trying to fight for more work, but it wasn't really happening until our clients scaled back a lot, and a lot of our projects got put on hold, which for me was good because I got to work on new stuff. It wasn't so great for the company, and it meant that a lot of people had to shift around, and that happens sometimes, so that's agency life. But yeah, I was able to start working on new projects and pitches and working with different teams and getting to learn to work with different types of people and the way other people structure their teams. And it was at this point that I had no idea what I was doing. And everything I had been doing on the previous account was pretty much already, the design language is already determined. I didn't have to generate any of that myself. I was just executing on what already existed. And so this was the first time where I was in brainstorming sessions. We were doing a lot of idea generation. We were starting design and sketching from nothing. And oh my God, that sounds terrible. Yeah, so this was the first time I had to do that, and so in the beginning it was really rough because I didn't know if I could handle that. And eventually I got more comfortable working on like 4 to 5 different accounts, like just jumping around and quickly getting used to acclimating to different projects. It was a great challenge, and it was a good thing to do. And then I eventually settled into some long-term work, which is what I really wanted. And it was a retail client. That's the retail client I've most recently been working with. And at that point, it should just totally hit the fan. And I, at this point, had really no idea what I was doing. It got so much worse. We had short deadlines. I had even more creative freedom this time than I did in, working on some of these pitchworks and other projects. And creative freedom sounds like a really great thing, but when for 2 years you've just been taking direction and problem solving in a very technical way, it's very stressful, and you don't want to let your team down, and you want to show the best work that you can, and you don't want to come up with bad ideas, but it's going to happen in the beginning. And I had to present my work for the first time in front of a group, like in a presentation, and defend my ideas and why I thought, what I thought was a smart idea. I had a creative director who was in Ohio and visiting the client. He was there all the time, so trying to communicate with him was a challenge. And it seemed like every single day on the dot, he would say, "Okay, I need you to finish this up in 20 minutes so I can send it to the client." And I would constantly be pulling my hair out because who does this? Like, who has a deadline every single day that you're giving me 20 minutes notice that I have to have something ready to present from the client? Like, this sucks. So I was really frustrated. But then when I started realizing that this is going to happen every single day, I should probably be prepared to handle this every single day. We had late nights and everything else, but the team was really supportive, and they did want to hear your they want to hear your feedback, and they want to support your ideas. And it was incredibly liberating. It was frustrating, but it helped me to challenge me so I could keep working in the same vein, working on faster paced projects, working where my ideas mattered more. And so I got more comfortable, and it worked out, and things started to settle down until I moved to their sister client, which is the one I've been most recently working on in the past few months. And I still have never done this. And it was at this point where I had thought that I had so much creative freedom before. This was the first time where literally nothing was designed. There was no style in place. They completely wanted to overhaul their work. And we had fortunately had a really good client who actually did want to elevate their design language in a really great way, so they trusted us. And we had to nail our design direction down in a week. The first day was research, and research was difficult. I was looking up competitor websites like, Old Navy, J. Crew, American Eagle, that type of thing, like stuff that I knew, and I'm like, well, these